Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now, here's your host, Aslan Hajavandi.
Of the program. Get your week started off the right way with Wake Up War Chant. I'm Aslan alongside Corey Clark. The program brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Those are three great properties at College Town, Madison Social, Central Township. Check them out. They're good folks, but not as good of a folk as Corey Clark. That was kind of awkward. Hey, man.
I don't know if that's true either.
Yeah, I can't prove. How are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah. Give me some words to describe your weekend other than dreary and rainy.
I can't. Those were the two I was going to use, and you took them from me. Sorry,
man. We're sharing one mind. It's crazy how this all works, man. They renewed us for a second week though, so that's pretty cool, man. Wake Up War Chant still going strong. Clark and Hudson.
Hey, man. 1 week at a time. That's all we can do.
That's all you can do. 1 week at a time, 1 foot in front of the other, man. So where should we begin? Let's begin with basketball, and then we'll kind of touch all the bases with all the sports and somewhat of a pun intended because we got to talk about baseball. People are upset on War Chant. They think that we're not talking about baseball enough, and I had to kind of defend our honor on the message boards. But basketball falls to Notre Dame on the road. I don't know if we saw that coming. It just felt like I didn't realize Matt Farrell was going to be back for Notre Dame. Matt Farrell was back, and the Irish kind of pulled away in the waning, not the waning moments, but the last 5-6 minutes of that game, they kind of pulled away. It was a close one there. I don't know. It's like the pulse of the Noles, man. NIT, NCAA, does anything change in your mind, Corey?
No, not really. I mean, what it does is it makes Wednesday night's game a must-win if you want to get to the tournament. Well, like Marv Levy said, the only real must-win was World War II. Everything else is just sports.
Yep.
But that said, if Florida State wants to get to the tournament, it needs to be Clemson on Wednesday night at home. Clemson's, if you saw the CBS show on Sunday, Clemson's the number 9 overall seed right now by the selection committee. They're a 3 seed. So if you can get a win over that team, that's a huge win. And Clemson isn't without their best player. He's out for the year. So it's a very winnable game against a good team. That would be a huge resume boost. And no, I don't think anything changed on Saturday. It was just disappointing in the sense that that's the first time this year the Florida State men kind of just fell apart on the road, or just fell apart in general. All their other losses have been by 7 points or less, and then they're playing a Notre Dame team without its best player. And even though they don't play well, they tie it up in the second half and then just get ripped. The final 8 minutes of that game just got rolled over. And that was just disappointing to see, but I think a lot of that was the hangover from the Virginia loss, to be honest with you.
It's my fault. I feel a little bit bad. I was actually passed out on the couch in the afternoon, and I woke up and saw that it was like a 2-point game. I'm like, oh, good. I should start paying attention now. And then they promptly unraveled, as you mentioned there. It's just so weird because, like when you get the pulse of the message boards and it's, put that in your pipe, ham haters. Like, he's a good coach, keep him around. And then as soon as he loses, then it's like, you ham lovers. Like, that's what it's always going to be the problem. And it's because I don't think anybody else really follows any other program besides their favorite team. These are the things that just happen with other programs. I mean, teams lose games. They shouldn't maybe lose at times, maybe like a Wake Forest. And there's times where you kind of fall apart in the second half and things like what happened on Saturday just sort of happen. It's really, no one really particularly to blame, which is a bit of a defenseless feeling. People want to start pointing fingers at folks, but I don't know how much of this is it just a team that we don't know who's like the best 2 guys on the floor at any given time. I don't know how much of it just the fluidity of who's going to step up, but I mean, they've made it this far and they've done quite well, I would say, compared to expectations so far.
Yeah, they have, and I think what you really have to wonder about is Terrence Mann and Brian Angola. I mean, I think those are your 2 best players. Terrence Mann's your best player, and he's been a ghost the last 2 games. He's made 2 baskets the last 2 games. That's not a coincidence that they lost both. Same with Angola. The 2 of them have made 4 baskets total in the last 2 games. You don't beat good teams like that. And Notre Dame's not even a great team. They're a decent team. But you can't go into a game with your 2 leading scorers where they make 1 basket each. And that's happened twice now for Florida State. I don't know. You can blame Hamilton for that if you want. He's certainly not a great coach. He's a decent coach, not a great coach. But it kind of gets exhausting on both sides with the Hamilton thing because every game is a referendum.
Yeah.
When he wins at Louisville, see, like you just said, see Ham haters, put that in your pipe and smoke it. He's a good coach. When he loses at Notre Dame, see you Ham low. It's like, man, just know what Florida State basketball is. You came into the season hoping to have a chance to get to the NCAA tournament after losing your 3 best players from last year's team. You're 17-7, and you have a real chance to make the NCAA tournament if you win this game on Wednesday night. That's kind of, if most Florida State fans would have been told that in October, that they would be in the middle of February with a chance to get to the NCAA tournament, they just need to win 3 home games against Clemson, Pitt, and Boston College, I think everybody takes that. And they would say, well, that's a really good season. Hamilton did a good job. But it just becomes this weird back and forth of fans who cheer for the same team, always using a win or a loss as a referendum on a coach. And it's like, look, man, Hamilton's not getting fired. So I don't understand the point, really, of criticizing him to the point saying that he needs to be fired, because that's not going to happen. But I also don't understand the other side of people defending his every action in every game. And, well, look, it's Florida State. You know, there's a medium there, but for whatever reason, the polar opposites seem to be really polar.
It is bizarre. I mean, like Texas with Shaka Smart isn't rolling over everybody, and Vanderbilt with like Bryce Drew isn't back to their past glory. It's just this is just the way that basketball happens. And I don't think people watch enough of other teams' worries and struggles to realize that these are like universal things that happen. Like when I see Florida State on offense, I know people talk about Hamilton not being, you know, obviously the greatest, you know, in-game kind of coach, but there's guys still moving. I mean, they're trying to space the floor. No one's just sitting around looking. There's no one playing hero ball. I mean, people are moving. They're trying to run screens. They're trying to get other guys available and open. It's just not working out in certain moments of the games. And it's so cliche. And this is the thing. Like I'm not the biggest basketball strategist, in case you can't tell at home. And it's the biggest cliche. But it's make or miss. I mean, you take a shot. You put like what Gilly pulls up and tries to knock down like a 19-footer. He was open from the elbow, and then I feel like things kind of maybe, you know, that wasn't any sort of linchpin. But at that moment, you're just kind of like, what's he doing out there shooting shots right now? He should just be out there trying to protect the glass. And he shoots a shot, and it rimmed out. And you're like, oh, you know, if that would have gone in, I'm on the couch by myself being like, what are you doing shooting it? If it goes in, then I'm like, okay, well, that was a good play. That was a good decision on his part. So it's just one of those bizarre things. And it goes back to your point, I think, that we need to look at what expectations were and look at where this team currently sits. And I don't know, do you feel pretty firmly about that? Win out your home schedule and probably getting a call to the show?
I think without a doubt, if they win that game on Wednesday, that's maybe their best win of the year. They also have a win over North Carolina. They have a road win at Louisville, a road win at Virginia Tech, and a road win at Florida. And those are all NCAA tournament teams. So you're going to get in if you finish with 20 wins, as long as one of those wins is against Clemson. They play them twice in the next 3 weeks. Beat them once, because that's going to be a top 4 seed overall in the tournament. A top 16 seed overall, a 4 seed on one of the lines, on one of the brackets. That's good enough, man. I just think their strength of schedule, their RPI will be high enough, their wins will be good enough, and they don't, other than the Wake loss, they don't have any devastating losses. At Notre Dame isn't a bad loss, especially with Matt Farrell back. That's a decent team. So, yes, I certainly think if they can win their 3 home games, their resume will be good enough no matter what happens in the ACC tournament, that they're a 9 or a 10 seed, which is fine. That again, when the season started, I didn't think this team had much of a chance at all of getting to the tournament. And now they're basically a home win away against Clemson from getting to the tournament. I think that's a pretty good season so far, all things considered.
Definitely. I agree with you, man. And it's just crazy to see the fact that this is where they're at, again, with who they lost in terms of talent and what they have remaining on the schedule. And then I feel like even if they are able to beat Clemson, they'll go into the ACC tournament, and if they get bounced in the first game, then and then it's just doom and gloom all over again. So it
happened last year because they lost to Notre Dame I think it was their first game of the tournament. Maybe they played Virginia Tech and beat them, and then lost to Notre Dame in their second game. I think that's what happened. But either way, as soon as they lost to Notre Dame, people are like, well, there goes Hamilton again. Hamilton's team underachieving. It's like, man, they just had the second most wins in school history. They were a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now, they did get bounced in the second round to Xavier, but again, we didn't know Xavier was what they were. That Xavier team went and beat Arizona, and now is number 4 in the country. So that was a really hard team they had to play in the second round, probably too hard. I think Xavier was obviously underseeded. So it's just every loss, it becomes a referendum on the coach. And I just, maybe it's because he's been here so long, and there hasn't been great success. There's been a championship. There's been 5 NCAA tournaments. This could be the 6th. That's not a great resume for being at a school at 16 years, but it's also Florida State. So it's an odd relationship Florida State fans have with their basketball program. They seem to be awfully quiet when they win and really vocal when they lose. And that's never really made sense to me, especially as a Georgia alum. Because look at that program. That guy's been here. This is his 9th year.
Mark Fox.
And he's been at the tournament once. And that was with somebody else's players. And this year they've been terrible. So, I don't think fans really, like you said, they don't really look around the country and look at a Georgia Tech or a Georgia. There's really no excuse for Florida State to be better than Georgia Tech, ever. Georgia Tech is in Atlanta, which has a lot better basketball players than the Panhandle. And yet Leonard Hamilton consistently goes to Atlanta and out-recruits the Georgia Tech coaches. And Georgia Tech has history, tradition. It's a basketball school. So Florida State, I don't know. I think I just don't know what people want, out of their program with what, like we talked about last week, when the attention that this program receives from the fans, you wonder what the expectations are. And I don't think they're that high. I mean, quite frankly, if the expectations of Florida State were really high, Hamilton wouldn't have even been the coach last year after he missed the tournament 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
But they let him stay, and then he had one of the all-time great seasons in Florida State history. So it just is what it is, and it gets exhausting on both sides with the defenders and the haters about Leonard Hamilton. It's like, man, this is your coach, this is your program. They're pretty fun. They're fun to watch this year. They might make the tournament. That's where Florida State basketball is in the world of college basketball. That's what Florida State is in the world of college basketball.
Well, and there's always those guys that are fighting for that faux nobility of, we shouldn't settle for this. We should want more. We should expect more. We should demand more from our basketball program. But it goes back to what you're saying. Geography, resources, what we're investing, what the school is willing to invest into the basketball program. I think you'd say that what they've invested, they've reaped it, maybe even a little bit more than what they've actually invested in the program thus far. But we'll continue to talk about that throughout the week, obviously, I'm sure. Speaking about Xavier, is it Xavier or Xavier? I don't know. Corey does. He'll straighten me out. We'll talk about them and the baseball team. That's the opener. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Wake Up War Chant right here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
These recruiting updates are nothing but fluff.
Are you wasting your time again on free blogs and social media to get the scoop on FSU recruiting?
Yeah, it's all bait and switch. Get me excited with a headline, but get nothing in return. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with FSU recruiting?
Could be another top 5 class, but for the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer. Just sign up and you'll get full access through signing day. And nobody has more accurate and timely information on recruiting than warchant.com.
You know I like free. Sign me up. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Welcome on back to the program, Wake Up War Chant on this Monday. I'm Aslan. Corey Clark also in the house. Thanks for being here, folks. This show, as always, brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. 3 great locations at College Town, Madison Social, Township Central. I need to start going to one of these and embracing and enjoying. I've been to Madison Social, but I haven't been to the other 2, but I'll be to them soon enough. Maybe after Friday's opener against Xavier. I think it's Xavier. Not as pronounced as Xavier, but I think it's not Xavier. I think it's Xavier.
I think if it was going to be pronounced Xavier, it should start with a Z.
Agreed.
That's always been my philosophy, so I pronounce it Xavier, because otherwise spell that thing with a Z. Why have an X if it's going to be pronounced like a Z? That doesn't make any sense.
Make English easy again. Corey Clark, 2020.
Exactly.
2020. Run for it, man. All right, so you and I were both at the Hauser on Friday. Sit down and catch up with 11, Mike Bell. Cal Raleigh also spoke to us, Cole Sands as well. So baseball season is here. Some folks on the message boards were shaking their fist at the sky saying, where's all the coverage? And I'm like, hey, listen, we were there for the availability this past week. Corey, broke down everything that was worthwhile to say. We put up Mike Martin talking about stuff. stuff, and Mike Bell talking about his staff, and Cal Raleigh talking about being an Iron Man. And in case you folks didn't know, he's named after Cal Ripken, so I guess he feels beholden to the fact that he has to play every single day. Dude, this team should be really good. I mean, you want to talk about the basketball team losing a lot of guys and the expectations. You know, you lose Busby, you lose Walls. You feel a little bit bad about that. But this team, I mean, top to bottom, still feels pretty good, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, and it starts with the rotation. You return all three guys. And to be honest with you, it really might start with Cole Sands, and I'm writing on him this week. Because he's been the talk of the camp, talk of the fall, and then I guess he's carried that over into preseason practice. If that guy can reach his potential and be a legitimate weekend starter, because quite frankly, he hasn't been very good his first 2 years. It's certainly compared to the, maybe the hype that he had coming in. If he can be that guy that gets you, 15 quality starts, 12 quality starts, throws 100 innings, can give you 6 or 7 innings a game, because last year and the year before he would struggle to get out of the fifth. He needs to be a better pitcher. If he can be that guy to go along with Parrish, who you feel confident about, and Tyler Holton, who's one of the best pitchers in the country, man, that's a pretty darn good rotation. And you always know the offense is going to be good because it's Mike Martin Jr. The offense is always going to be good. So if you can get that starting rotation to be good, because you do have some question marks in the bullpen. If those starters can eat innings, man, this is a good team. This could be I'm not going to say that.
Team?
It could be a College World Series team.
Say it's the team, Corey. Say it's the team.
I'm not. Nope. Not doing that. But they certainly have enough talent. They should be better than last year. And last year's team got to the College World Series. If they stay healthy, because last year's team was beset by injuries. If this team stays healthy, it doesn't have any more injury losses like it has already to a couple relievers, man, it's a College World Series caliber team for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, when you got a Friday night guy like Tyler, I think Tyler Holton's Mr. Friday Night for them. Right? I mean, he's got to be the number one guy.
Sure.
Tyler Holton, Aslan. I used to go to high school with a guy named Tyler Moore, and sorry, everybody. I know it's Tyler Holton. T. Holt.
Was he a good pitcher, the kid you went to school with?
No, he was actually a track guy. He was actually pretty good. He had some hops for being a Caucasian. It was pretty impressive. But
that's good.
So when you have Holton as your Friday night guy, and then Parrish probably Saturday, and if Cole's going to be Sunday, or if Cole's built enough up in his toolbox, which I'm sure you're going to be talking about in the story writing on War Chant, exactly. If they can eat up the innings and get through, like you said, 12, 15 quality starts for a guy like for Cole. I mean, the sky's the limit for this program. But my thing is, the person that was criticizing us, and I mean, I didn't take it badly or anything. It was just like, listen, I realize football is the cash cow and blah, blah, blah. But, this team is preseason top 5. And I get it. And I just don't. I mean, if there's any program that is just riddled with apathy, it has to be Florida State baseball. It still doesn't mean that you can't get excited, but as like a journalist, and I don't really consider myself as much of a journalist as you should, senior writer for WarChant.com, Corey Clark.
Correct.
But, what is there to write about when you're talking about Florida State baseball? It almost is like just wake me up in May. Like, wake me up in May, wake me up in June, and then we'll really start talking about things. I mean, this is the time for the diehards to really enjoy it and see the team take shape, but I mean, they always have talent, and there's always a question mark or two. And then they get to Omaha if they're lucky enough, and then we see how things go. I mean, that's kind of the way it works. I don't feel like we're being, neglecting the program. Just the way it is. Like, how can you really go out every single year in February and write some knock-up preview story about the baseball team?
Well, yeah, I don't know that apathy is the correct word, because I do think that Florida State does have a fan base that cares and that does pay attention maybe more than most ACC schools. But I do think for the casual fan, it's definitely wake me up in May, wake me up in June. And when they don't win the national championship, all you hear is about how Martin can't win the big one. Where it's like, man, he got to the College World Series when they were very close to not even making the tournament last year.
Yep.
And you have to win a lot of big ones to get to the College World Series. He hasn't won the biggest one, but he's won big ones. And that's always going to be the asterisk with him, with 11, obviously, even as he chases down the record, which he should break this year unless things go really sideways. But, yeah, Florida State, that's just a testament to what he's built, that literally every year for the last 4 decades, they've won 40 or more games. That's preposterous. Nobody does that. It just doesn't happen. Even Duke basketball and North Carolina basketball have had some down years where they had, Duke had a losing record one year. North Carolina's going to the NIT. Yeah. Kentucky went to the NIT a few years ago.
And they lost.
With 3 first-round picks and lost to like Robert Morris or somebody.
Correct.
So all these great programs and all these other sports have down years. Last year was that year for Florida State baseball, and they still made it to Omaha. It's just a remarkable program. It really is. And trust me, anybody that's complaining about coverage on War Chant, it's going to be all the time, not all the time, but it's going to be for the next 4 or 5 months. It's going to be a lot of baseball. We're still in the preseason. The season hasn't started yet. The coverage will come, and you're talking, especially to me, man, I think, you could make an argument. Mike Martin, is one of the best. He's certainly the best regular season college baseball coach of all time. And I know people would rather have 2 or 3 national titles or 6 or whatever, and I get that. But, man, don't sleep on the accomplishment of what he's done at Florida State for the last 4 decades. And it's the culture. Every year, even Miami has had down years. 4 years ago or 5 years ago, Florida had a losing record, finished with a losing record. That just does not happen at Florida State ever. In one of these years, whether Mike Martin Sr., Mike Martin Jr., or somebody else is coaching this team, they're going to win a national championship. But for now, man, really do appreciate how incredibly consistent this program is. And they're supposed to be really good again this year, even by Florida State standards, which are already insanely high.
Well said is all I can really add to that. But
That was a lot. I talked way too much. I apologize.
This segment brought to you by Corey Clark and the Corey Clark Foundation. It's, I don't want to, I'm not going to be that guy. And I'm not saying I'm not going to be that guy and then I'm going to go be that guy, but it's just so hard to, I don't want to say appreciate it because, I remember talking about it when I was in Alabama on radio about, I'm bringing attention to Mike Martin. Every single season, 40 wins. And I had the head coach from Chipola on the show, and, he was saying that he was rooting for Florida State to win it all because everybody that's involved in baseball, whether it's little league, high school, or college, they know about Mike Martin. They want to see him win one. It's just so difficult when you experience it. I know Jeff has mentioned it so many times with you guys on headlines. You'll go into a football season and look at the schedule and be like, okay, this team is going to be 10-2. And then you are 10-2 and you're still pissed because you lost those 2 games and you saw the way you lost them. And it's just the ways these things happen. If it was like, in 2010 when they lost to Arizona in the first game, last year against LSU, what was it? Was it Stephen Wells? The ball goes right under his glove.
Goes under his glove, yeah.
It's just the way these things happen are just so gut-wrenching. But then most everyone dusts themselves off and gets back up the next year and they're ready to go for it. But, it's college baseball, but if they're going to make a 30 for 30 on anything that's ever happened in college baseball, and if Mike Martin doesn't win it, I think it'll almost be just as compelling if he were to actually end up winning it. I feel like that story is a story that needs to be told. So in terms of appreciating things, I just think the story and what Mike Martin means, just not to this program, but like just to the drama of actual sport. He's like a folk hero almost when you think about it in a way like this. It's like this lovable, I'm not going to say a lovable loser because the guy wins all the freaking time, but just the way these things happen is just maddening. And it's so hard to like feel optimistic about things. And that's what kills sports when you don't feel optimistic about your squad.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting, man, because I grew up an Atlanta Braves fan. And we went to the postseason 14 straight years and won 1 championship. Meanwhile, the Florida Marlins have been to the postseason twice ever, and they won the World Series both times. Well, who's had a better life as a fan, me or the Florida Marlin fan? I got to enjoy 14 years straight of winning baseball. Now, there was some heartache, obviously, but for 14 years, I got to cheer for a team that was really good, that was always in it, always had a chance to win. That's what Florida State fans get. One of these years it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen for Mike Martin. Time's running out, quite obviously. Maybe this is the year. I think what's happened the last few times they've gone out there is some extra pressure because you don't know how many more times he's going to get back. And it's not just, hey, let's win this World Series for us. It's we got to win it for all the other teams that came before us and didn't do it. And I think that, and for the head coach, I just think that adds some pressure. But again, to get to as many College World Series as they've been to, You have to win so many big games. So many big games. Auburn last year was one strike away from winning the regional. One strike away. Yep. And then that happened. That Florida State fans don't think about that game. They think about the LSU game. Do you know what I'm saying? But you don't get to the LSU game if Dylan Busby doesn't triple off the wall. So baseball's a weird sport, and they've been unlucky out there sometimes. Sometimes maybe he hasn't made the right decisions. Sometimes they lose to better teams. It just happens. I think the 2012 team, if Luke Weaver had been Luke Weaver that year and said they didn't use him as much as they should have, if they would have had that Luke Weaver that showed up the next year, they probably win the World Series. But it didn't happen. They lost to Arizona when they couldn't get a hit. James Ramsey really got walked, but they called it strike 3. Ugh. Just stuff like that seems to happen to them. But again, it happens to everyone. Texas has been to the College World Series, 40 times. They've won 5 of them. Well, that means they've been out there 35 times and didn't win it. It's just really hard to win. Florida State's been really unlucky. I've always made the point, the baseball guides owe Florida State about 4 titles in a row. And one of these times it's going to flip, much like the Boston Red Sox. Something's going to flip, and they're going to start winning championships again. In the meantime, let's just appreciate a head coach that stays for 40 years and wins almost 2,000 games. That's insanity. That will never happen again, and I really hope it's appreciated when it does happen, and we don't hear the yeah but all the time, because he has had a great career, and Florida State baseball is a tremendous program.
Corey's being way too reasonable. I'm going to shake him up after the break. This is just too much.
That's what I do.
Too much
That's what I do. I'm reasonable.
Keep it here. We're coming right back with more Wake Up War Chant right after this.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Hey there, I'm Aslan. Welcome back to the program. It's called Wake Up War Chant right here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Corey Clark in the house. C-Dog, make some noise.
What up, what up?
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. This segment, the entire show, every single Wake Up War Chant brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Check them on out at College Town, Central Township, Madison Social. Good times for everybody involved. Good times Wednesday, last Wednesday, National Signing Day, Florida State doing quite well. You want to talk about looking at things glass half empty, Corey. One of my buddies messaged me and was asking, we had a group text message going. He's like, hey, man, is this Foster kid, is he going to be the truth? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, Jimbo stole him from us. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. Then another one of my friends pipes in and says, I heard we didn't sign one single 5-star recruit. And I'm like, well, Rivals has got one of the guys from California, Jaden Woodby, as a 5-star, but I guess maybe on some recruiting services he's not. But do we not realize what he inherited, what he had to go through, and it was a top 10 class, at least by rival standards. So it's crazy when you see and you hear your friends talk like that. I have to be reasonable. I have to tap into my inner Corey Clark and reason with them.
And I'm pretty confident Willie Taggart will sign a few 5-star recruits during his tenure at Florida State. I have a sneaking suspicion that will happen.
Yeah, be cool. Be cool. So Wednesday over here was pretty cool. Willie was nice and just, very measured and very calm, very cool. I'm sure he was exhausted from all the running around he had to do. Meanwhile, over in College Station, apparently, I don't know, it's a funny sort of a thing we've mentioned on the show once or twice. He who cannot be named.
Right.
People like Green Bay Packer fans would not call Brett Favre when he came back and was playing for the Vikings. They would just say, Aaron Rodgers versus he who shall not be named. And
correct,
it's gone like another level. Like he who shall not be named now doesn't want a name where he used to work at.
Yeah, there was a clip that, I guess I saw it on Twitter on Friday night or maybe Thursday night. I can't remember, where Jimbo Fisher, who used to coach here at Florida State, referred to Florida State as that other place.
Right.
Quote unquote, that other place. And apparently in other times during the press conference, he did say Florida State, but for whatever reason that time he decided to call Florida State that other place. And that wasn't really taken in the greatest way by Florida State fans, which I can understand. Mainly I thought it was funny because I can't tell you how many times my man had no problem saying LSU in Auburn. In fact, he would make a point of arguing that the 1993 Auburn team should have at least had a share of that national championship that Florida State owns because they went undefeated, even though they're on probation.
John Jacobs.
He had no problems making that claim many times, and he would do it with a smile on his face. But he'd always say Auburn and what we did at Auburn and what we did at LSU, and now he's going to refer to Florida State as that other place. Come on, man. That other place was really good to you. Anyway, it was not taken I don't think it was taken real well by Florida State fans, many of whom are still going to be upset with him for a long, long time. And this one just adds a little more, I don't want to say salt to the wound, because I don't think Florida State fans are upset at how this all played, like the end result of this. Trading in Jimbo Fisher for Willie Taggart. Now, maybe that's dumb, maybe that's smart. We'll see. I don't think they're upset that Jimbo's in College Station and Willie's here. I think they're upset that Jimbo still seems to not want to just show any amount of appreciation for where he was and what Florida State did for him. It's, you know what I mean? I just think that's what rubs people the wrong way. And when you say that other place, man, that's just kind of bizarre.
Listen, I don't want you to empty any off-the-record conversations, and I'm being genuine and sincere.
Oh, I'll do it. Let's go. I'll empty them all. I'll empty every chamber I got.
If there's a pie chart that represents the entire unauthorized, raw, unedited, unvarnished truth of why Jimbo Fisher and Florida State fell apart, if it's a big pie chart, what percentage do you think you know? Just you personally, in terms of how you're connected and who you've spoken with.
I mean, I feel like I would know 90% of that pie.
Really? Okay.
And you know me, I love pie. It's one of my favorite things.
That's right.
Not so much I don't like it for breakfast. I know some people have pie for breakfast, but I do like pie a lot. But I would say about 85 to 90% of I mean, look, it got really, really contentious with the Jimbo and the people that matter. And I'm not talking about John Thrasher and Stan Wilcox, although they matter a lot. It was more than that. And the people that really matter at a university when it comes to a football program, that relationship really soured between them and Jimbo. And it had for a while. Jimbo was never easy to work with on any front, but he becomes more so when he's 3-6. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't want to hear it as much. Maybe you don't have you're not going to sit there and wear whatever you're going to have to wear, take whatever you have to take, because Jimbo's in one of his moods again when my man is 3-6. So I just think, it had been souring for a while, and then it just came to a head over the disaster that was the first 3 months of the 2017 season.
See, I mean, I think I'm the inverse of you. I think I'm probably know 5% of it, because I hope that I only know 5% because none of it makes sense. If what I know would be 70% of the true story, it still doesn't make sense to me.
He wasn't fired. People had a problem with him, big problems with him, but he wasn't being fired. The question is, why would you leave? Because he wasn't in any danger of losing his job. There was some heads being butted up against each other, but he wasn't fired. He just left for another job, a significant step down, but for significant more money. So that's what it was. It's just there's not a lot of mystery to it. He wasn't easy to work with. He continued to make demands, and they weren't being done in his timeline. So he just got more and more fed up. Well, finally, it got to the point where, whether he wanted to stay and was just using Texas A&M for leverage or not, or if he really wanted to go, Florida State finally said, you know what, go then. That's the reality of the situation, and they didn't give him a choice, and they made him resign. But other than that, there's not really a lot of off-the-record stuff that even plays into it. It's just it wasn't a good relationship at the end. They weren't going to beg him to stay, and I think he might have thought they were going to beg him to stay, and they didn't.
That's okay. Okay, because my thing is, man, there was 40,000 people in there to probably watch Mickey Andrews coach's last football game. All right, there was times his team struggled to beat Jacksonville State. That
was Bobby Bowden's last home game too. Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I just remember how horrible it was. So I think and that's why it makes so many people upset at home and that are listening to the program over the few weeks. And I'm sorry, it's just. Because maybe I put myself in the shoes of Jimbo and I'm thinking, listen, man, yes, this place is great. It was awesome at one point. But when I walked in here, this place was pretty lousy. relatively speaking to the great glory that was once achieved on these same grounds. I walk in here, it's 6-6. We need to get punt returns to win games against Maryland to make it to bowls. And then I just put together and assembled arguably the best collegiate football team in modern day history. And that was 4 years ago. And I want this really cool thing because Clemson has it and Alabama has it, and that's good enough reason because this is what I did for you guys. And I don't know, I think maybe I would be that arrogant. I think maybe I would be that hard to work with. And I don't know how much of it is, like John Thrasher said, this is something that adults should be able to figure out, like reasonable, rational adults, when he was talking about the whole, Andy Miller, Booster, and Jimbo Fisher relationship being frayed. But it's just bizarre to me that things were so just downtrodden around this program. He lifted it up to such great heights. And then there was this showdown, and they're like, okay, all right, man, whatever, later. Go ahead. Bye.
Well, think about what you said, though. You said that when he got here, they needed a punt return against Maryland, which they did from Greg Reed to get to a bowl. Well, this year they had to reschedule a game against a Sun Belt team to get to a bowl. That was on Jimbo Fisher's watch. So, again, it ain't like this is happening after the 13 season or the 14 season. It's 12 losses in 3 years from him. I think that's where it comes into. Whatever he was, 17-12 in his last 29 against FBS opponents. So he didn't have quite the leverage he would have in 13 or 14. But again, they weren't saying no. They just weren't saying quickly fast enough for him, apparently. And again, so they keep being told what all these other schools have. Texas A&M has the best facilities in the country, yada, yada, yada. Great, man. Go in there. Go see if you can be the one that cracks the code, because nobody has yet. They've always had money. They've had oil money for decades. They don't win jack squat there. Not since Dat Wynn was the linebacker have they won anything. So I think that's the mindset of, and not just the boosters, but Florida State fans in general. It's like, man, they do appreciate, again, we're going to have this conversation probably in perpetuity, but they appreciate what he did. But it always seemed like, what had been established before Jimbo maybe wasn't appreciated enough. In the fact that he did have the 6th highest paid coaching staff in the country. He was one of the top 5 or 10 highest paid coaches in the country. They have tremendous facilities. No, they're not Texas A&M or Alabama. Okay, but you're in Florida. You get to recruit in the best state in the country for high school football. You get the female population at both Florida State and Florida A&M. You have a lot of great things going for you that make it easy to recruit. Where maybe you don't need a wiffle ball field in a fireman's slide in a glow in the dark football mansion right away to say that you need to compete with Clemson. They are going to build a football only facility in some manner, whether it means redoing more to make it just a football facility. They're going to figure out a way to be competitive with the Clemsons and the Alabamas of the world. But at Florida State, sometimes stuff takes time. You got your IPF. You got your coaches' huge salaries and guaranteed contracts. They kept Charles Kelly away from Auburn by giving him a huge guaranteed contract. They gave you a huge buyout, the biggest buyout in the country. And yet it still felt like Jimbo was asking for more each year. It was never enough. And that was where the frustration comes into, where even after Florida State gave him everything he asked for, literally everything, except maybe the football facility as quickly as he wanted, he still has the audacity to call it that other place. I just see how that would rub people the wrong way. Again, it sounds like I'm mad, and I'm not. I really think it's funny because for whatever reason, coaches are doing that more and more, including Willie Taggart on signing day referred to Oregon as that other place. But he had only been there a year, and he was talking in the recruiting, how they were recruiting people at other schools, and then they brought him to Florida State. Jimbo has such a history at Florida State. They took a chance on an assistant that had never been a head coach, made him the head coach in waiting, and then made him the head coach of one of the 10 best programs in the country. And it just, again, it never seems like maybe that is appreciated as much as it should be.
In the other segment, more thoughts about the other guy saying that other place. Keep it here. It's Wake Up War Chant, ESPN 97.9.
Darn pop-ups and video ads.
Are you wasting your time again on clickbait FSU updates that are bloated down with ads?
Yeah. And after crashing my computer, the information isn't even up to date. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with the Seminoles?
For the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer right now.
You know I like free. Sign me up.
Use the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Nobody has more accurate and timely information on the Noles than WARCHANT.com.
WARCHANT.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Our Monday is almost over. Yours is just getting started. Hopefully this made it a little bit better. It's Wake Up War Chant. I'm Aslan. He's Corey. Thanks for being here. We do appreciate it. And we do appreciate our sponsor, For the Table Hospitality. 3 great locations. You know where. College Town. You know the names. Madison Social, Central, Township. Go check them out. Tell them Aslan and Corey sent you. Nothing's going to happen. That's cool. But just say that. It'll make us feel
They'll
cool.
be like, what? That's probably what they'll say. But hey, Wake Up War Chant is on iTunes, obviously, right?
Correct. I think. Actually, I shouldn't say I think.
I'm almost positive it is. I think so. But people need to go rate, wherever it is, whenever you're listening to it, if you're listening in the podcast form, go rate and review it.
5.
As long as you're going to give us good ratings.
5 stars. 5 stars. Just like Jameis.
5 stars. Yeah, just
Jameis.
Nothing but like LaMarcus Joyner's and Jameis Winston's 5 stars. We won't want the 3-star stuff. It's 5 stars or nothing.
By the way, somebody on Twitter tweeted at the show and said that every single season when you start the year, you can have the same thing kind of locked and loaded about Leonard Hamilton, and something has to change. I really don't have anything to add to that, but I just want to let the people at home know that we do check the Twitter and we see your comments.
I did actually respond to him because he said they always start on the bubble, and they're always on the bubble, and I'm like, man, last year they were a 3 seed,
right?
And then the point is saying just what I said earlier today. He is not a great coach. He's a decent coach. Can Florida State get a great coach? Who knows? I don't know.
I don't know either. All right,
but he's good. He's done a good job. He's done not a great job. He's been a pretty good coach at Florida State.
Fair enough. All right, let's be unfair and let's talk about some guy behind his back, the other guy at the new place, talking about the old place. So here's my thing, Corey. You're a reasonable guy. So we reasonably believe, and I know people are sick about talking about this, but I haven't had a chance to talk about this with somebody who is as well connected to things as you are. But so we believe that Jimbo had assurances for everything that he wanted, just wasn't being done quick enough, and that he would walk away from, again, all these great things you said, this state with all of its talent, this town with all of its talent, if you know what I mean. He was willing to walk away from all of that because when he said jump, we didn't say how high in a voice tone that he liked. Because that's what it sounds like, right? So, if that was the thing, right? If that's what butting heads, he wants this thing done ASAP, and we're not doing it fast enough. And so that's the thing. That's going to make him walk away from all of this. Because we feel like what this is here is special and tough to walk away from. But he did it quite easily.
Well, I don't know if it was that easily, but he did do it. It might have been begrudgingly. He might have really wanted to stay. But yeah, I think Jimbo, from Jimbo's perspective, got tired of having to feel like he was begging every time. That it wasn't like at Alabama when they say, Coach Saban, what can we do? What do you want us to build? You want a dome? You want what do you want? Tell us whatever you want. Just a field of chocolate? Anything for you. We can help you. It wasn't anything like that. At Florida State, I think he felt like he was always having to ask for more because they would never suggest it. And any time he asked for something, he was always met with resistance. So he always thought he was fighting against the forces that control the money. I think he always felt like he was fighting. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if everybody goes through that. I just know that Jimbo would look at Clemson and look at A&M and be like, it is ridiculous that the team that's won more games than 1980 over anyone else, the team that's won the most, I have to continually keep asking for things and keep getting told no. Or I think Jimbo's perspective was they were trying to do things on the cheap. Because quite frankly, they did do things on the cheap for a long time under Bowden when they were great. They didn't have to keep paying him a ton of money. But, I just don't think that's true, man. Florida State isn't cheap, as they proved with those coaches' salaries. I just think that was Jimbo's perspective, and it was hard for him to reconcile that at the end of the day. And finally he got told maybe not no, but more like hold your horses, man. And he didn't want to hear it, and that was that. It ended up being a sour separation and a sour divorce, but it was a really good marriage. It won a lot of games for a 6-year stretch there.
Here's a thought, Corey. We talk about this at least one segment every single day, and we get it sponsored by a divorce attorney.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know. As a divorced person myself, Actually, I'll be honest with you, not to get too personal here on Wake Up War Chant, but I legitimately think I might have one of the best divorces in the country. Like, me and my ex-wife get along better now than we ever did when we were married. It's crazy. So kids, be sure when you're picking out your first wife to make sure it's somebody that you're going to really like, even if you're not married anymore. Same with the ladies. Ladies, make sure your first husband is going to be somebody you can still, stand to be in the same room with when it falls apart.
Is this more absurd than my Lane Kiffin theory? There could maybe be a future at some point where Jimbo Fisher came back to Florida State and was a coach as a head football coach.
That is, yes. Lane Kiffin Monty Kiffin. Any Kiffin I'm sure Kiffin has a kid or two, or his wife. All of the Kiffins would have a better chance of coming back to Florida State and being the football coach than Jimbo Fisher. That could not happen again.
Okay, all right.
Bobby Bowden would have a better shot of coaching.
Bring him back. And maybe that's what Jimbo should have also realized, is what this program, what this school did to that man. Not that I think it was bad, but you can look at it in a certain way. And if they were going to let him, if we were going to put Bobby out to pasture the way we did, then he's going to be told to wait for his.
Realize he was on the staff. Yeah. He was in the middle of it. He was there up close and saw it. Yeah. So he knows what happened. So yeah, the whole thing is just, it's like he forgot where the program was in 2009 when they did need that punt return to beat Maryland. Meanwhile, after all the great things he did, 8 years later, they were having to reschedule a game against Louisiana Monroe to get to a bowl game. So he had kind of brought it back down to right where it was when he took over. So it was just a good time for a split.
Hey, man, you're always taught, you teach Brady, leave things how you found them. And that's all he did, So
that's right,
off his back. All right, we got about 90 seconds left in the program. I saw this posted on Twitter, and it's total, conjecture, which is a terrible thing to do as a person who takes pride in journalism. But Alabama is, Nick Saban, I think, actually said on National Signing Day that he plans on bringing in another quarterback because as of right now, they have 3 quarterbacks. They've got Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and then Mac Jones. They're supposedly close to getting this kid from East Carolina. His name is Gardner Minshew. And I know this kid because I actually covered him in Mississippi. He was playing in a town that was 20 minutes away from where Cam Akers played football at. Now, this kid actually started about 4 or 5 games at East Carolina. I think he had the most passing yards of any FBS quarterback in the last 5 games of the season. Now, there's no way on God's green earth he starts ahead of Tua. Maybe he becomes a number 2 guy because maybe Jalen totally has fallen out of favor, but I wonder if this is a guy that, and this is just obviously a metaphorical question more than anything. I wonder if this is a guy that I hope like Willie Taggart saw this tweet and Willie Taggart's reaching out to this kid because he probably has more of a shot of getting on the field in Tallahassee than he would in Alabama. If he goes to Alabama, suppose he left East Carolina because of family problems that he wants to be closer towards, and Tuscaloosa is only about 3 hours away from Metro Jackson, Mississippi, which is where he's from. So I hope we can start getting some names and maybe some smoke about some transfers when it comes to quarterbacks, because Florida State needs at least one camp arm, I would think. No?
What about Felipe Franks, man? He's from Wakulla. That's right down the road.
Nah, man. No, we're good. Wait, who is their starting quarterback? Is he going to be their starting quarterback, or is Dan Mullen going to go with this Emory Jones kid? He's going to go all in with the freshman.
I mean, just judging from what I saw, well, again, it's hard to say with Felipe Franks, man. He wasn't getting the best coaching, so maybe he does have some ability that we just didn't see.
Come on, McElwain. Listen, McElwain had one good quarterback. He had Will Greer, and Will Greer tore up Ole Miss, and then the next day tested positive for naughty stuff. I mean, I just don't think he was able to maybe recruit the best sort of guys. But he made Will Greer look pretty good. I mean, I always had Trayon? Yeah, Trayon and who else? I mean, Slappy McSlapperson. I mean, I think Jim McElwain's a good coach.
They got to start playing. I mean, at some point you want him to get better. Felipe Franks never got any better this year. He kept getting worse, actually.
He did. Thank God. All right, we need to go out. That was all we have to say. Hopefully, yeah, right? Do you agree? Yes or no? Do we need another camp arm or not? Am I being unreasonable?
No, I don't think so. I think 3 quarterbacks is enough.
All right, there you go. You heard it from Corey. He knows more than I do. Thanks for listening, folks. It's Wake Up War Chant. We'll see you tomorrow, which is a Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Say bye, Corey.
Peace out.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.